Welcome back to Afternoons Live. I'm Tyler Axness, your host, and this is a conversation I've been looking forward to having for a little while now. Now, on my end, I've been watching it. It's all been in West Fargo, and I can't say that for certain, but it feels like it's all been in West Fargo. I'm going to peg that on the liquor license and what it costs in Fargo versus West Fargo. But what I've noticed is a changing of hands of a few bars, and not to just being sold to another individual or group. It's been sold to some of the charitable organizations. I could think about Border Town, and that was the first I noticed. Well, just last month, perhaps, or at the beginning of this month, I guess it is the end of August, it became known officially that rookies had been bought by the North Dakota Horse Park. And I know of at least another one that's in conversations about maybe making that change. And I just was curious about how this all works. So we will reach out to an individual who's been on the show, a friend of the show, Mike Motsenbacher, who is the executive director of the North Dakota Gaming Alliance. Mike, welcome back to Afternoons Live. Hope you've been well.
Yeah, thanks. You too. I appreciate you having me on again today.
On face value, people are saying, well, this feels weird. And when I look into some of the details, I'm like, okay, I get it, but there are still some of those lingering questions of why, of having some of these charitable organizations, nonprofits saying, you know what, let's buy it. Let's go buy that bar. Explain the process of what's going on across the state, Mike.
Well, there are a few examples, like you mentioned, where, one of the charities has gone in and purchased one of their gaming sites and such, but you can't really just point to one reason why they're doing it. I mean, there's, several reasons why one do it. They're not all the same, of course, but they might do it to prevent losing one of their existing gaming sites to another charity. They could do it to replace a lost site by acquiring a comparable one. They might do it to just diversify their assets, by adding additional revenue streams that support their charitable programs. They might do it because they don't want to, they can avoid the pressure from private bar owners that maybe are pushing them to violate gaming laws, which they don't want to do. Or, there's several reasons why a charity might want to purchase a bar, and I just don't think you can,
Sure.
find one main reason of why they're all doing it.
Sure. I guess maybe a better way that I should have phrased it is it seems like this is more of a recent phenomenon, that something's changed, that maybe it's just it took, hey, one group saw another did it and said, look, there's an opportunity here, with their own reason to maybe make the leap and buy the purchase. But maybe the better question is, has this been going on for a long time, or is this more of a recent development?
Well, there was a few charities that had already owned properties, prior to like 2017 when the ETABs came in North Dakota. Now, of course, charitable gaming has exploded since ETABs, of course, have come in and such. So I do think there's, it could be a competition aspect where they, don't want to lose their gaming site. So one of their options that they have is they could actually purchase the site and they can own and operate it, or they could just, purchase the building and lease out the building. They've got options what they want to do, and that's all completely legal. But, just to make you and your, listeners, just so we get it out right away, they cannot use any gaming dollars to purchase or operate the bar. It has to be done completely separate. And most of these charities, well, not most of them, but several of these charities do have a for-profit arm. Which is, of course, encouraged by, IRS 501c3 regulations that they diversify assets. And one of the things that they're encouraged to do is to actually purchase property. And this is one of the things that they can do is they can buy a bar. They can do things like purchase, thrift shops or, stuff like that would possibly help their business too. So there's, several reasons why they would want to do it, but it's hard to assume why they're all doing it for sure.
Well, and I worked in a nonprofit for like 6 years prior to being in office, and I've gone through all the fundraising things. And you're right. One of the things is like, hey, if you can, having some property is a good idea.
Exactly.
I wasn't in the nonprofit that could afford that, but some of these have been able to expand their portfolio. When it comes to just the ownership of a bar itself, here's some of the things I hear, and it's because West Fargo and that area used to be home, and I still stop over from time to time. People will be like, well, these charities it's an unfair advantage to all those other private business owners that have taken a risk to buy their bar. I'm curious your response to that claim that's out there.
Well, I would say that there's no advantage. A charity doesn't operate under a separate set of laws than a regular private owner does. I mean, they have all the exact same rules and regulations that anybody would. So there's no advantage for them to do so. They have the same risks that anybody would.
The other questions that I've heard, from people, you can call them barstool commentary, I guess, if you want.
I hear a lot of that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of problem solving that happens in some of those.
Yep, right.
There's people that assume, okay, well, this is gonna there's gonna be some form of abuse, and one of the examples that was thrown out at the group that I was with is, okay, well, since it's a charity, if they want people to be spending money on those machines that are part of their nonprofit, they could just have a great drink discount so people will come in, they'll go spend their money there. And that's the unfair advantage that these charities have. That's an example I've heard before, Mike.
Well, I would push back a little bit because they still have to run that bar profitably. So if they're giving out drink discounts, like I said before, they cannot legally use any of their gaming dollars to operate the bar or even offset the bar costs. They have to run it as a profitable business like anybody else does. So if they're giving away their drinks, they're not going to be able to run that business in the black. And I mean, so that'd be a pretty poor business practice if you ask me.
Question comes into our Adventure RV Text Club. Tyler, I believe these nonprofits are exempt from paying taxes. Is that true? I'll throw that to you, Mike.
That is false when it comes to this type of business because the only property tax exemptions that they get is if it is used for strictly a charitable purpose only, and a bar is not considered a charitable purpose. So no, they do not get any tax advantages whatsoever.
I think what might be beneficial is the structure of it, right? Because you had mentioned, the 501c3s, some of those different setups where it is what I assume, and I'll let you tell me if I'm assuming right or not, is you've got your charitable organization, and then I imagine they're setting up an LLC or a subsidiary that would be then the business for-profit owner of these bars, or am I completely off on that, Mike?
Nope, that would be likely the most common option is what they would do is they would set up a for-profit arm, and then that's how they would purchase the property is under their for-profit arm, because that's not going to fall under their charitable purpose.
35270 is the Adventure RV Text Club. I appreciate people taking some interest in this. The question that I think is what's next? I imagine this is going to be discussed at a legislative session because, as you point out, it's about 2017 where e-tabs, right? And we've seen how that's changed the landscape. You go anywhere, and there are family restaurants that have the e-tab machines in the bars, and some of them you see a lot of national television ads on about being in the neighborhood. So they're everywhere, and everywhere they seem full. So I mean, we've had this explosion of e-tabs. I think that has generated a lot of charitable gaming for these organizations. Now we're seeing them move into ownership of bars. What's next? Is there anything that needs to be reined in or maybe, I guess, solidified, saying here is the divide between the gaming, the bar ownership? Are you perfectly comfortable with where things are right now, Mike?
Well, just for the record, the North Dakota Gaming Alliance has not taken an official position on charities owning bars.
Okay.
So, I mean, everything I'm just going to be telling you today is just, facts and figures and stuff like that. But, out of 940 gaming sites in the state, and, I sent you those charts that shows the number, it's approximately 27 have some sort of extra relationship with the bar besides just doing the gaming and such. So that's less than 3%, 2.5%, something like that. I don't think at 2.5% then this is a major issue. If that would get up to 25% or something like that, then I would say, yeah, we probably need to really look and address this from a legislative standpoint. But the other fact is, Tyler, that there are not, out of the 250 or 300 charities, however many are out there right now, out of all these charities, there's very, very few that are possibly in a financial position to where they could even afford to purchase a gaming site like that. So I don't foresee this exploding. I would be shocked if it did, just because there are not, enough of them that have the financial capabilities. And then several I've talked to don't, even if they did have the financial capabilities, don't want to get into the business of owning a bar.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to operate it. I mean, these people are charitable professionals. They're not bar owners. They don't know the bar business. So I mean, it's a challenge. And I mean, I wouldn't want to own a bar. I don't know anything about operating a bar.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most of these charities, even if they do have the financial capability, don't want to get into that market.
There's some comments in that I'm going to throw your way while I got you, Mike. And, of
Sure.
course, we're talking about the North Dakota Gaming Alliance. This one, our high school booster club here in Fargo has been trying to get a charitable gaming license for 3 years now. Very frustrating process with the state, and they won't return phone calls or emails. The money earned could be a game changer for students. That's just a comment that comes in. I'll let you respond to.
Well, it's there is a process to get licensed to do charitable gaming in the state, and there's once you get your 501c3 status, there is a 2-year waiting period. So I don't know. I can just say this: I have never had a problem contacting the North Dakota Attorney General's Gaming Division. They've always been extremely helpful and responsive to anything that we've ever needed. I guess I would just encourage them to reach out and see what the status of their application is and such. But I haven't. This is the first that I've heard anybody say that they've been non-responsive. And but the other challenge, while you're on this subject, the other challenge is there's not a lot of open gaming sites out there. So that's a lot of these new charities that are coming in, thinking maybe, hey, this is going to be an easy way for us to make a whole bunch of money. Well, the first thing you got to do is you got to find a gaming site that's willing to put your charity in there. And that's one of the biggest challenges right now too. But
when it comes to finding those locations, because you're right, we're limited. It feels like every other couple of months a new bar is opening up or a new restaurant where they have some of these e-tabs in particular. And I know it goes beyond that, but those are the things people see the most of. Is this an annual renewal? Let's say, okay, I've got a baseball. It's like West Fargo baseball is one that comes to mind, right? Because I've seen that they've been in some of the bars. Do they have to apply to get to that spot every year, or is this a multi-year agreement? It's annual.
It's annual, correct.
Okay, so yeah, the competition there where it is going to be tough for some of these, I would say smaller charitable organizations going to break into the mold is going to be difficult, which, of course, if they're smaller, they're not going to be able to buy the establishment. They're going to have to get creative in other ways. Mike, it's just one of those things that it feels so new to me. I've got a lot of people saying, this – there's one in Bismarck that's worth $10 million. That's a charitable spot because in part they own some of the spots out there. So I think there's some that understand it. There's some that are uneasy about it. There's some that I assume are going to say this is pushing out, some of the competition of the smaller nonprofits to actually have an opportunity here. So with all that shoved on your plate, I'm going to give you the final word before I let you go.
Well, I would just say, it is competition, just like any other business. If I'm a new charity, I have to go find a gaming site. I just have to convince the bar owner to say, hey, I think, our charity is going to be better. It's no different than having any vendor, your paper vendor or your booze vendors or whatever it is. You have to, be convincing that your product is going to sell in their site. No different than the charity. You're going to have to convince them that, this is a great charity and we'd appreciate it if you support us. Some of them are going to switch if they like the product that they have. They'll go ahead and switch. Some of them are just going to be happy with who they have. So, I mean, it's no different than any other, business aspect. If you're coming in and trying to sell your product, you have to convince them that, this is something that's going to benefit their business.
Mike, I'm up against the clock. I appreciate you coming and joining us. You got the conversation started with our listeners. Anything before I let you go?
Nope. I appreciate you having me on and letting us get the word out.
All right. Well, until next time, you take care, all right?
All right. Thanks a lot, Tyler.
Yeah, you bet. Mike Motsenbacher, he is the North Dakota Executive Director for the Gaming Alliance. I've got a lot of thoughts in our text club at 35270. I got open phone lines all the way to the top of the 4 o'clock hour. So join the conversation at 35270 or you can call into the Northwest Tire studio line at 237-5948. Afternoons Live is rolling on right here on KFGO.